In this video, we'll be looking at Old as Dirt's second game, Archaean Adventure. The Archaean refers to a geological time between 4.5 and 2.5 billion years ago. Around 2.5 billion years ago, the Earth experienced the Great Oxidation Event, with oxygen being produced by the cyanobacteria in stromatolites. Archaean Adventure is a relatively complex game. It can take 15 to 20 minutes for a round. It focuses on underwater black and white smokers. During the Archaean time, the Earth was hot and lots of magma and volcanism erupted on the sea floor. Where the ocean floor was cracked, seawater percolated through the newly formed oceanic crust, leaching the metals and elements out of the rock. Under pressure, these metal-laden, superheated fluids erupted out from the crust under pressure, forming plumes rich in metals such as iron and calcium. When these supercharged metal-rich hot plumes interact with the cold sea water, the solid particles rain down through the water column and form chimneys around the collar of the vent. The hotter fluids precipitate the dark-coloured black smokers, while cooler fluids form the white-coloured calcium carbonate smokers. This venting process supplied the iron, which was oxidized to form the iron layers of banded iron formations, or BIFs, which is now mined in the Pilbara for the iron to form steel. In this game, you are going in search of these smokers, navigating an ancient Archaean ocean, and using different tools to measure temperature and acidity to find where the smokers are. This game requires lots of collaboration between each team. Discussion between teams before they start will be necessary. While playing this game, we've sometimes found that a single student will get up and try and take control. Try to avoid this. After the teacher starts a game of Archaean Adventure, each student team takes control of a different station of a submarine. Before starting, it's good practice to summarize the purpose of the game and discuss the possible roles with the students. Depending on the amount of student teams, 6, 7, or 8, the possible stations will be different. We'll go over the specifics of each station momentarily. If there are 6 student teams playing, the stations will be Helm, Engineering, Ops, Rov A, Rov B, and Rov C. If there are 7 student teams playing, the stations will be Helm, Engineering, Ops, Rov A, Rov B, Rov C, and Rov D. If there are 8 student teams playing, the stations will be Helm, Engineering, Ops, Science, Rov A, Rov B, Rov C, and Rov D. Let's take a look at each of the stations. The Engineering station is in charge of allocating power to the various systems of the submarine. The Engineering station is always in play, regardless of whether there are 6, 7, or 8 student teams playing. Because the Engineering station allocates power, some of the other stations won't be able to function without action from Engineering. The Engineering station can increase or decrease power to all the submarine stations. The power to Helm impacts how far the submarine can move in one go. The power to the Ops station allows the submarine to ping, revealing nearby rocks, and deploy probes to mark smokers, as well as dock or undock ROVs. The more power Ops has, the further their ping will see. The power to the Science station allows the submarine sensors, pH, temperature, chemical, and life, to be turned on or off. The more power Science has, the more sensors they can have active at the same time. If the submarine runs out of power, the game is over. The Helm station is in charge of moving the submarine. The Helm station is always in play, regardless of whether there are 6, 7, or 8 student teams playing. The students controlling the Helm can choose to turn to port, left, turn to starboard, right, or accelerate. The Helm needs power allocated by the Engineering station in order to function. The more power it has, the further the submarine moves. Turning to port will rotate the submarine 90 degrees to the left from its current facing. Turning to starboard will rotate the submarine 90 degrees to the right from its current facing. Accelerate will move the submarine forward, relative to its current facing. If the submarine runs into rocks, they'll be blocked. However, rocks are normally invisible. To find them, the Ops station will need to use their sonar. The Ops station is in charge of the submarine's sonar, probe release, and ROV docking and undocking. The Ops station is always in play, regardless of whether there are 6, 7, or 8 student teams playing. The ops station can ping, which will use the submarine's inbuilt sonar to release a pulse, temporarily revealing the location of nearby rocks. The ops station is also in charge of undocking the ROVs attached to the submarine. When a ROV is docked, it can't move on its own, so the ops station will need to undock them first. The ops station can also deploy a probe. If the submarine is close enough to a smoker, they gain a point for the whole group. If they're not close enough, they won't. The submarine only has a limited number of probes, so students will need to make use of the sensors to figure out if they're near a smoker. If the submarine runs out of probes, the game is over. The science station is in charge of operating sensors on board the submarine. The science station is only present in the game when there are 8 student teams. The science station has 4 sensors: life complexity, temperature, pH, and chemical composition. A sensor can only be activated by science if it has received power from engineering. The more power science has received, the more sensors it can run at the same time. Sensors are critical for figuring out where smokers are located. Each ROV station is in charge of a remote-operated vehicle. ROVs start docked to the submarine. The ops station needs to undock them before they can move. ROVs can move on their own and have a sensor, but they cannot deploy a probe. Each ROV has a different sensor. To make effective use of the ROVs, the students must move them around and use their sensors to learn about the environment so that the submarine can move in and deploy a probe. Archean Adventure is a challenging game that requires coordination, collaboration, and teamwork to succeed.